Hello and welcome to this video, which is a launch and a release, a celebration of the California Doughnut Full Report on Social and Ecological Performance, our snapshot and report. I'm Della Duncan,
And I'm Franziska Raedeker.
and we are part of the California Doughnut Economics Coalition, and we are so happy to share this official launch with you. To begin, I want to invite us to think of a question. The question is, when you think about the California economy, what comes to mind? Would you say that it's healthy? Would you say that it's successful? Would you say that it's demonstrating progress? Just what comes to mind when you think of the economy of California? In this presentation, we're going to be inviting a holistic way to think about the California economy today. And so, yeah, we hold in mind the ways that we've been taught to think about success and progress. Maybe there's going to be some unlearning, and then there's going to be this invitation to think about the California economy in a new way. So, as we begin to introduce ourselves, we are the California Doughnut Economics Coalition. We are a worker self-directed nonprofit that is trying to bring in the principles and practices of doughnut economics into our organizational form. And we've been around since 2023. Our vision is to create a California where people and planet thrive together. And our strategy is fourfold: to craft a doughnut snapshot of California, which is what we've done and what we're celebrating and sharing today; to create a new economic narrative for California, as I just spoke to. How do we want to ascertain how is the health and the well-being of the California economy, and where must we put our attention and our energy, our capital, and our efforts? To collaborate with existing change makers and to spark local doughnut initiatives, policies, and practices. So this is who we are and what we've been up to. So what is doughnut economics? Perhaps this is new for you or maybe in need of a refresher. So what is doughnut economics? Well, first, just to appreciate Kate Rayworth, who's the root teacher of doughnut economics. And yet doughnut economics is not only Kate, it's now a global community. But to appreciate her, she came up with the idea and also wrote a book about doughnut economics. Doughnut Economics, 7 Ways to Think Like a 21st Century Economist. So starting with her and some appreciation there. But doughnut economics is a few things. One, it's a holistic goal for an economy. So it's a goal for an economy based on the well-being of people and the planet. That's the goal, the well-being of people and the planet. It's a measurement tool. So we are attentive to what we measure, as my mentor, Dr. Havinto, would say. So what is it that we measure? And what is it we want to measure? So doughnut economics is a measurement tool measuring the well-being and health of people on the planet. And it's an alternative to GDP, or gross domestic product. It's also a policy screening tool. So it's meant to inform policies so that policies may be guided towards helping us reach this healthy, happy flourishing for people and the planet as this goal. And it's a business framework, so including businesses in getting us to a place where people have their needs met and we're in relation to the needs of the ecosystems. And it's a global community, so it's all over the world. And that global community, in part, is called DEAL, the Doughnut Economics Action Lab, which is a free platform that hosts this community to learn together, to practice together, and to turn doughnut economics into reality. And here's that website there in case you want to learn more about that. This is the doughnut in the most classic sense. If you were to say, what is the doughnut? This is what this image is. So here in this image, we have a few things. We have the social foundations right here, which are from the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So water, food, health, etc. And these are the indicators that are about meeting human needs. And if you can imagine a place, you can assess how a place is doing at meeting each one of these needs. And if it were to meet that need completely, we would reach the social foundation. If we have area where we have not enough meeting of that need, we're in shortfall. Then on this outer part of the donut, we have the ecological ceiling. We have the needs of our ecosystems or the planet. This comes from the Stockholm Resilience Center, and they're known as the planetary boundaries. Now, this is for the planet, but we can also think about them on all sorts of levels, from our bioregions and our cities to our states, as well as countries, and then, of course, globally. Now, the idea of the donut is what if the goal of the economy were to meet all these needs, to have no shortfall, and then to stay within consideration of the needs of our ecosystems out here and to not go into overshoot. If we were to do that, we would be within the donut, which is right here. You can imagine some sprinkles or whatever your favorite flavor is. And this is the safe and just space for humanity. So that alternative goal that I spoke about, that would be getting us within the donut. How we do that is a regenerative and distributive economy. So this is, again, the classic donut image. So how are we doing? Well, here is the global donut, and this is a donut 3.0, so a newly refreshed donut of how we're doing globally. And you can see in the social area, we're in shortfall in many, many of our areas. And in our ecological areas, we are way in overshoot in several of them. So you can see we are a world out of balance, and a lot of work is needed on this global level. Then in the US, here is an image from 2022 of our US donut. So this work has been done there. Again, lots of red there. And so one of our questions at the California Doughnut Economics Coalition is, what is the donut for California? What would this image be? How are we doing at meeting our human needs and staying within the needs of our ecosystem? I'm excited to hand over to Franziska to share our updated California Donut snapshot and long report that explains how we did this, what it is, and the implications of it. So over to you, Franziska.
Thank you, Della. Yeah, this is really our answer, hopefully, to the current question, what would a donut look like for California, which would be the fourth largest economy in the world if it were a country on its own. We have a new California Donut snapshot and in-depth report. If you go to that QR code, you can access the long and short version and download them. And while you do that, a couple things. You may have seen the prior 2024 snapshot or attended some presentation on that. And this is new and different. As you would expect, the snapshot actually has been updated as a summary of the ecological and social indicators specific to our beautiful state. And beyond that, my co-authors and I have created a longer report to provide a few things, rationale and background on the specific indicators, really saying, why did you measure this? Where did you get it from? What's a reasonable threshold there? We also expanded on the social justice considerations and are highlighting existing state policy because there's already quite a bit underfoot that actually works towards getting California into the donut. At this point, we'd like to really express our gratitude and give thanks to the amazing CalDAC volunteer team, our external reviewers, all supporters big and small, and of course, the Doughnut Economics Action Lab. You'll probably find yourself in one of the target audience groups. There are many use cases for the Doughnut framework, and we invite anyone to use this research in creative collaboration to measure what matters, reframe economic performance, and inspire wider adoption of ecological and social metrics within local governments, educational institutions, and community organizations. A special shout out here to all the local California donuts that are already rising in places like San Francisco, San Jose, Petaluma, San Diego County, Santa Cruz, San Mateo County, Placer County, and beyond. When you download the report, a few things to notice. It starts with the snapshot, which is about 12 pages of that summary. Then comes the deep dive report. There's an interactive menu on the left that allows you to move around quickly and jump back and forth. For each social and ecological category, you'll see 3 pages, as demonstrated here to the right, that explain how California is doing, how we measured the 2 indicators each and the target thresholds, and we spotlight the related California policy and justice considerations. Of course, at the end of the report, we also list our reviewers, academics, and policy experts and point to further reading. And we share the data details and our exact sources. Lifting the curtain a little, how did we get to the California donut? For the indicators, we looked at over 200 possible ones that had been used by global, national, and subnational donuts from around the world and all the data that's available in and about California. We then narrowed that down and adjusted the indicators and the targets based on consultations with experts in each specific field. That was a tricky process. The numbers themselves come from reliable sources. About half of them are from government, particularly California state government, 30% roughly from NGOs, and 20% from academic papers. Before we jump in, please keep in mind that 2 indicators, no matter how well chosen, really can't give the full picture of each category. Like when you go to a health checkup, blood pressure and body temperature only tell part of the story. Each category is really unique and contains complexity, so avoid snap judgments and use the donut rather as an invitation to learn more about the levers for change in each category and across the system. Trends over time also will show nuance. They help celebrate the wins and identify opportunities. Now, are you eager to see some data? Let's start with the snapshot summary visual, the California donut as of late 2025. This is the classic donut with the familiar 9 ecological categories outside, 12 social categories inside. Each of them contains 2 indicators. Overall, at first glance, the amount of red, the overshoot on shortfall, looks much like the US and maybe even worse in some areas. The reason is that we often selected more comprehensive indicators and more aspirational goals. We'll give some examples soon. Measured this way, California overshoots 89% of its ecological boundaries by an average of over 280%, and it falls short on all social aspects by an average of over 30%. So at first glance, this beautiful, rich state is using much more than its fair share of the planet, while still not providing sufficient basics to all its people. So where are the gaps greatest and what's already being done? Can we have a closer look? Let's take the inner circle first and unroll it to zoom in. This unrolled view shows the social indicators in more detail, including the percent shortfall along the full name of the indicator. This is the best place to look for hotspots, discern patterns, or spot discrepancies between indicators. We wanted to mention again that our choice to use aspirational targets makes a difference here. For example, we have 100% of Californians have access to clean water as our target. If we had used the target of 95% instead, which is what they did for the national donuts, the 2% of people who receive their water from systems that do not meet quality standards would not be considered a shortfall, even though close to 1 million Californians receive water from these faulty systems. Hopefully that makes clear why we chose the aspirational target, even if it makes it almost impossible to achieve practically. More explanations are in the social deep dive sections. As one example, let's peek housing. On the left, there's some California context about the importance of housing, the prevalence of housing problems, and possible drivers. Next to that, there's a highlighted quote. Here, overall, California falls short in providing affordable housing to residents and is home to the largest population of people experiencing homelessness in the United States. On the next page of the deep dive, you'll find what we measured, as well as the policy spotlight and justice spotlight. For what we measured, the housing indicator number 1 is homelessness, measured by the point-in-time count on a designated night in January, sheltered and unsheltered. In 2024, the last data available, that count showed over 187,000 unhoused people, almost 0.5% of the population across California. How severe is that? So we need a target and a scale here. 0% represents the goal, and 100% corresponds to the highest recorded homelessness rate within all OECD countries, which are comparable to California, and that would be 1.32% in Northern Ireland. And then using that scale, it makes the shortfall about 36%. The second housing indicator is housing cost burden. The threshold here is when housing cost exceeds 30% of household income, because that hinders then spending for other essentials and savings for financial security and investment potential. In California, 55% of renters have housing costs that exceed 30% of their household income. As renting is more common among lower income households, it also reflects more immediate changes in housing affordability. Similarly, though, 38% of homeowners in California also spend more than 30% of their income on mortgage costs, and that compares to 20% nationwide. Two really cool sections in each of those deep dive sections. I'm sorry, just go back for the policy and justice spotlight. Wanted to give the example here for housing. We point out any spending bills and other substantial policy efforts that positively impact the indicators. And in the justice spotlight, we look at how Black, Latino, and formerly incarcerated people are more affected by these housing shortfalls. You'll find rich details such as these for each of the social categories. Now, let's unroll the outer ring of the summary donut, the ecological overshoot, along with the full indicator names. What you can note here is that the social shortfall used to be capped by definition at 100%, but ecological overshoot here can and often does exceed the safe biophysical limits by way more than 100%, unfortunately. Note that there are squiggly lines on the tall bars to make it all fit onto one page. We also include consumption-based indicators to capture California's footprint on the entire planet. For example, we measure annual greenhouse gas emissions per capita from a consumption-based perspective, and that makes it 19.3 tons versus the territorial metric that would be only 10. So here in California, we're already more than 1,800% over that safe limit. We also use very stringent definitions. For example, here, renewable electricity. It includes only the gold standard of solar, wind, and geothermal. If we took a compromise here, if we had included hydropower, biomass, and nuclear for renewable electricity, our overshoot would be lower. But also, on the other side, if we had considered all energy from renewables, not just electricity, the overshoot would be far higher. We aimed for something that reflects both of those aspects. More explanations are really in the ecological deep dive sections for each indicator. As an example of a category, let's pick biodiversity loss. For some context of the concept, on the left side here we talk about the sixth mass extinction and its causes and what it means for California. Over 90% of biodiversity loss is caused by the use and processing of natural resources. Humans directly impact 75% of ice-free land in the world, mainly with agriculture, resource extraction, built-up land, and recreation. A bit shorter also here this time, I'm pointing out the sections, what we measured. Here the two indicators that we selected were protected land and sea areas and at-risk plant and animal species. In the policy spotlight, for example, we highlight that California's 30 by 30 initiative aims to protect 30% of land and sea by 2030, and it's making progress towards that. In the justice spotlight, we talk about how indigenous communities safeguard most of the world's biodiversity, yet are under continued pressure. Those were a couple examples. Let's zoom out and say, what are the key main takeaways? California is such a wonderful place, but we're also an example of how social shortfall often still goes hand in hand with massive ecological overshoot. Social inequality makes it worse, and existing policies only address a small part of the problems. Where exactly should improvements focus on? Here's a list of the biggest gaps that might need to be addressed first, ideally in conjunction, where they are interconnected. And then it can influence a couple of things. One example of that potential influence is, for example, to promote consumption-based GHG emissions, greenhouse gas emissions accounting in California, because currently the California Air Resources Board, CARB, is not incorporating consumption-based accounting into its inventory and scoping plan. Other findings could also influence the priorities, initiatives, and future research. Research, what would that look like? Glad you asked. For several directions would come to mind, including those listed here: metrics beyond GDP, consumption-based accounting, time trends, state comparisons, how's California doing versus other places in the US, and multi-solving approaches, not looking at things in a silo, having a more holistic perspective. For more on what's next and what can I do, I'm handing it back to Della.
Thank you. So here again, we have the California donut. So just inviting us to sense into how this feels and where we're at right now, and also as an alternative to what we started with. So an holistic view of how well we're doing at meeting the human needs of our state and staying within the needs of our ecosystem. And the other question is, where are you? Where are you in this donut? Where is your livelihood? Where is your activism, your art making, your community building? And how can we each contribute to getting us within the safe and just space for humanity, getting us within the donut? So for our next steps invitations, what you can do, we have a few invitations for you. So if you are at the state level, a state policymaker, you can use this donut and report to sense into how we're doing as a state and where we need to go to get us within the donut. So you can use this to inform policies and laws and development plans, and also budgets and budget allocations and other types of allocation of resources. If you're an educator, you can bring in this snapshot and doughnut economics in general into your curriculum. This can be at the grade school level, the high school level, the university level, and the community level. So doughnut economics in general is a great way to unlearn the assumptions underlying mainstream economic thinking that has really brought a lot of ecological harm and social deprivation. And it's an alternative. So what is this way that we can move towards an economy that really serves all and serves the well-being and health of people on the planet? So there's many resources for educators that are freely available through the Doughnut Economics Lab website. For researchers, as Franziska shared, there are many points of research and also collaboration here, and largely to help us improve the indicators and also to update them over time. City leaders, so if you are in a place that you'd like to bring the donut to, you can adopt doughnut economics at your local level. As Franziska shared, there's many local doughnut initiatives that are happening, so you can join an existing one. And if there isn't one yet where you are, you can work to build doughnut economics where you are. Work on the snapshot and also doughnut economics principles and initiatives in practice. And you can reach out to us if you'd like some support on that. And also, again, the Doughnut Economic Action Lab website has many tools in that area as well. And then just in general, as community members, we can work to change the goal of our current economic system together. We can measure what truly matters in our local, state, and national levels. We can demand more and better from our policymakers and politicians, and we can inspire and educate people by bringing them doughnut economics, whether that's a book club or sharing about our report or the snapshot or talking about doughnut economics in general. So again, we are grateful for your listening and your collaboration with us in this process. And you can learn more about us and you can check out that report, which is freely available, and our updated snapshot at caldec.org. Thank you so much for your time and attention, and we look forward to hearing from you.